Here's an exploration for practicing a high lunge pose, focusing on the external rotators of your front leg hip. So what you'll need here for this movement is a block and a wall. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to start in mountain pose and step one leg back into a very small lunging stance. Now, I'm just demonstrating this to show, and then I'll turn to the side. The block itself is going to go right on the outside of the front thigh, about midway down, and it will be pressing against the wall. So what this will do is it will allow you to utilize the femur bone by pressing it out into the block to activate the outer hip muscles on the front leg. So let me explain that from the side here. So I have my left side of my torso near the wall. So I'm going to stand in mountain pose close to the wall, and then I'll take my outside leg, my right leg, back a little bit, and just coming into a very short stance here, bending the front knee. Now I'll take my block and I'll place it against the wall, and again, right on the outside middle of the thigh here. So from this position now, I'm bringing my hands to the pelvis, actively pressing the front femur or the front leg into the block. And just doing this right here, just holding this position, you can start to feel, hopefully, somewhere around the front hip muscles, the outer hip muscles, the gluteus muscles, starting to wake up a bit. And so now we're going to maintain that pressing the block with the leg here, and then starting to tilt forward from the hip. So this is a hinge from the hips here. It's not a rounding of your spine. So as you start to connect more into feeling the bend from the hips, another way that you can check to make sure you're not rounding your spine is to put your thumbs on the rib cage, the lower ribs, and your pinky fingers on the front hip bones. And it's a really nice little cue to sense if you're rounding your back, you'll feel the space between your thumbs and pinky fingers shorten. And that's a sign that you're flexing your spine rather than bending from the hip. So the idea being is you bend from the hip crease, and the space between the thumb and the pinky fingers at the ribs and pelvis area stay the same. So that doesn't change. This is all happening while you're pressing your front leg into the block. And then go ahead and take yourself back into mountain pose for a moment and observe what you feel from the one side to the other. Then we'll do the second side. So now I have my right side facing the wall. I'll take a little step back with my outside foot leg, which is my left leg, and then take the block again against the wall and pressing the leg into the block. So positioned right around mid-thigh. So hands come to the pelvis. As I'm pressing the leg into the block, I could just stay here, and this helps to work and connect through the outer hip muscles on the front leg. Then I can start to add that little bend from the hips here. It might be a small amount of movement that's actually available to you versus rounding the spine. So again, you can take your thumbs to the low ribs, your pinky fingers to the front of the pelvis, and as you tip forward from your hips, the space between the ribs and pelvis ought not to change. So that you're really nurturing the available amount of movement you have through your hip. And then you can take the block away and come back into mountain pose. And just check in for a moment with your mountain pose to sense what you feel through your legs and your feet, and what you also might notice through your upper body, feeling steady and grounded. So have fun exploring this little lunge pose.